I don't understand. Why would my child smear feces? Or why
Right.
would my child poop and then not want to clean themselves? For the child, it's a protection. Like,
Right, 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 right.
poop and it's all over me, they won't want me. They won't
Right,
touch
right.
me. They will leave me alone. Everybody, leave her alone. I don't ever have to worry about anybody doing that bad thing to me ever again because I got poop on me.
Right. Hey, y'all, and welcome to Let's Talk Sis. I'm Shekinah, your host, and as we spend time together, I can promise you three things. I'll be honest, I'll make you laugh, and I won't hold back. Let's Talk Sis is your essential girl talk destination where you'll hear about life from the perspective of a black woman in America, as our stories often go untold. I can assure you, while honest, we are a community for growth and love. Remember to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. Now sit back, relax, and let's talk, sis. All right. Hello, hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Sis. Today is super duper duper special because I have one of the most important people in the world to me on the pod, my mommy. Hi, mommy.
Hi, Pookie.
Do we look alike? According to her, we look just like sisters, so I'll go with
Yeah,
that.
that's my sister.
Yes, indeed, indeed. How are you today?
Doing well, doing well. I'm alive.
Amen. Amen. So before we get into it, let me read y'all just a little bit about who she is. Very much so a little bit because if you know my mom, she's full of life and personalities and stories and all of that. But today we're going to tap into her professional side and the work that she's done in her community. So Java Roberson, okay, check the T, recently married. Java Roberson is a retired mental health therapist. She has been a trauma specialist working with youth and their family navigating through traumatic experiences. She specialized in cognitive behavioral therapy for adults with anxiety and depression and help individuals to implement mindfulness in order to create the life that they want. And she is currently accepting clients for life coaching. So, big stuff, big work. And so today, before we get into the conversation, because it can be a little heavy, we want to set the mood. And so last week, I told you guys I want to start just kind of lighting a candle just so we can all get on a vibe together. Scent is really a big part of how you feel emotionally. It can help affect your mood. So mom, what candle you got over there burning today?
I have a teak wood and oak candle. Let's see, I got the wrong glasses.
OMG.
Do you?
Yes. Well, it's
Oh,
teak wood. I don't know about oak, but yeah.
oh, okay. It smells amazing.
Yes.
Yes, my
It's
space just like invigorating.
yeah, it's like manly a little bit too. So
Yes, yes, it has that undertone. I love it.
vibe. That's crazy that we were on the same page with that. So I love
Mhm.
that. So what was the best part of your week?
I was able to get back on the island and finally hang out with friends to bring in the new year here, watch the fireworks on the beach. It was pretty amazing.
That's beautiful. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
I
you.
never seen fireworks. Well, yes, I have seen fireworks at the beach, I think, before. So beautiful, beautiful. So today, as we mentioned, my mom is a mental health therapist and specifically dealing with trauma. So, if y'all been on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram streets, you probably have seen this story, and it's an unfortunate one. But it's around about the Braxton sisters. One of their nieces essentially told the internet an experience that she had with one of the husbands in the family. So I'm going to play the video and then we're just going to get into a conversation kind of around what she's talking about. So let me get it queued up.
Same thing, or if not, just provide a safe space and place, okay? So bear with me on all of this. Also, I'm 32. This happened when I was 16, so this is like 16 years of me trying to find the courage to be able to talk about it. And I'm so proud of myself that, sure, it's taken me a little bit longer than I expected or wanted to, but I'm able to talk about it. And I'm just like extremely happy right now. So give me a second, bear with me, but I'm going to tell it as best I can, okay? So I'm 16. I'm at my aunt's house. And when I leave, I'm there for the summer. Her partner decides, her husband at the time decides to start sexting me. So sexting in a sexual manner. Okay, there was nothing physical that happened. Absolutely nothing physical. However, when my parents first brought it up to my aunt, she was there for me, very like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. And as the years have evolved, that has turned into, it's your fault. It's turned into, you were old enough to know right from wrong. And it's turned into something physical happened and you did it. And for me, that's mind-boggling to me, because if there was something that was physical that happened, and I'm 16 years old, this makes this person right, you know the word and I can't use it. And so that is mind-boggling. It's just something that I don't really understand. I'm 16 years old. I'm 16. So what I've learned in therapy is that it doesn't matter what age you are when this sort of situation falls into your lap, however you decided to handle it is however you decided to handle it. And it's the responsibility of the adult to have had the responsibility to handle it a certain way. But when you're 16, or it doesn't matter what age you are as a child, you're not equipped of how this works, and it just shouldn't have fallen into your hands anyway. And so I think the hardest part for me was trying to navigate as to why is it me? Do you know? Why am I the scapegoat? Why are you not talking to me? I didn't ask for it. And I think so much empathy is needed for people who have gone through this sort of situation, for you to really understand that we didn't ask for this situation to happen to us. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this. I don't want this. This is not fun. This is my life. This is real. This is my family. It's not something that you ask for. And so you can only spend so much time thinking about it and pondering and wondering like what you could have done better, done differently. And I've just gone through enough therapy to just realize and understand that I handled it the way that I did, and it just shouldn't have been in my plate. And why do you want me to come to you and say, yes, I had a physical relationship with this person? Like, that makes him, do you know what I mean? I said that I wouldn't get emotional on this, and I don't know. This person has also had a platform to be able to talk and to be able to voice, show his character of who he is, and like we're just breaking bread with the person as if nothing has happened, or like it's just, I don't know. But I say all of this to say that there's so many of you who understand my frustration in this and my silence, and I've just been dealing with so many emotions of feeling so many, like I have to start another video, sorry.
All right, so I'm going to cut it off there. So the first thing I want to ask you is like, what is trauma? How would you define that in your experience?
Trauma is anything, again, anything that affects like your normal day to day. So let's say every day you were able to wake up and brush your teeth, wash your face, put your clothes on, singing a song, and then something different has happened that now impedes on your ability to get up, wash your face, brush your teeth, and sing your happy song. So it can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And what's traumatic for you may not be traumatic for me. What may impede your ability to function in your normal capacity may not impede my ability to do that. So that's a general summation of trauma.
Okay. And so, in your conversations and working with different families, how often or common do you hear this story? Because I'm sure she's obviously not the only person to have experienced something like this.
Oh, it's more common than you think.
Mm.
A lot of times, fear. There's a lot of pieces that are involved when it comes to dealing with a pedophilic behavior. Um, and especially when it's someone that's within the family unit.
So, what do you think is one of the most common? I mean, so as a kid, right, I'm sure there are different roadblocks that you experience compared to a woman when it, or as an adult when it comes to expressing and telling your trauma. But what are some of those roadblocks that you see in the way, or why is it so difficult for people to come forward and share their stories?
A lot of it has to do with especially in a child. Like, I don't know this. I don't know what this is. I don't know what to call it. I don't know. All I know is something in me doesn't feel good, or I can't necessarily articulate what it is, especially if grooming is happening. And grooming is a matter of, like, as a child, this adult is telling them things like, or preparing them with love bombing. Like, I'm going to gift you things. I may give you extra candy. I may give you extra time. I'm going to make you my favorite and make you feel secure that I have your best interest at heart, to groom you, to prepare you for this moment that I, the adult, I'm going to basically take away your innocence as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And she mentioned that she was 16 and that the aunt is now saying, like, oh, well, you were old enough and you knew better. But again, I at 16, you don't know, like, because
Right.
again, my uncle, this is a part of the family. This is someone everyone loves. This is someone, I'm assuming, everyone respected because he continued to be in the family.
Right.
Um, to the point where she felt like, hey, I got to leave the country and I'm going to go over here to Europe so I don't have to deal with all the things that are happening here.
Right. Walk me through the mindset of that aunt that is so adamant, right, that this child had some responsibility in that. What is in the mind of that kind of a person to not be able to see who's really at fault here?
There could be so many things. The aunt herself could have
Mm-hmm.
a similar experience and
Mm-hmm.
feel like, I survived it, so you should be able to survive it too, kind of thing. Or, nah, my husband ain't did no mess like that. You must have done something like that, because there's no way that my husband would ever want, you know what I mean? Like, it can all just be the story that the aunt has made within herself to be able to handle this harsh truth,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's a hard truth for anyone to deal with. That, you mean I chose a man who would perpetrate on a
Mm-hmm.
child?
Mm-hmm.
No, I would never do that. That couldn't be me. I wouldn't do that. So there must be something that you did that allowed this to for him to think it was okay. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that no one wants to be wrong. No one
Right.
wants to be at fault. No one wants to own it. No one wants to say, I played a part in this
Mm-hmm.
tragic thing that's happened.
Especially when it's not something they did. Like, I didn't do this thing, but I'm attached to it, I'm associated with it, and now you want me to own that disgusting behavior. Like, I can't. I'm not that's not me. So
Correct.
it in sitting down with the family like this, where do you start? Right, once the child or whomever has come forward, said their story, like, where do you start to begin the healing process?
So when I was doing trauma work, especially with youth, I did what they call trauma focused CBT.
Okay.
And with trauma focused CBT, it starts with education.
Okay.
Let's talk about what trauma is. Let's talk about what pedophilic behavior is. Let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
all the pieces. Let's educate
Mm-hmm.
everybody on all the pieces so that we're all speaking the same language. We're all talking about the same things. We're all understanding when this person says this is what they're meaning. Let's give every part of it the appropriate phrasing. So if
Mm-hmm.
she says, well, he touched me. Well, what do you mean when you say he touched me? Did he put his
Mm-hmm.
arm on your shoulder? No,
Mm-hmm.
he put his hands on my breast. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She's saying he touched me or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
To a common understanding of what's being said.
That's
Now,
really good. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's really good because I think a lot of people would think it's identifying responsibility, it's pointing out the fault and then removing the problem. But you're saying you have to give language to these things, these experiences, because some things like touch, if you just categorize touch all as one big thing, now you've eliminated this part of your life and probably can't be touched by anybody else in a loving way, and learn how to turn this negative moment, right, and not allow it to cloud every other interaction that you have with other people. So that's really good to first like know, okay, let's define and get really granular, get really specific, and get really intentional with our words and with our language so that we can, I don't know if compartmentalize is the right word, but identify this situation as what it is. And then another situation where somebody rubs my back as love or as care or as showing up in support.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So again, the first step in it is the psychoeducation piece. Then once we get from the psychoeducation piece, we get to affect regulation, which is what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just because this person touched me and it didn't feel good
Right.
doesn't mean that the next person, can't touch me. In between those two things, we teach relaxation. So
Okay.
we teach, okay, when I'm feeling these things, because again, as a child, your body is responding, things are happening, your brain is going haywire, and trauma actually rewires the brain. So, like you said, when someone touches me, instead of me understanding that it could be love, now it's rewired to panic. It's
Mm-hmm.
rewired to being anxious. I'm anxious now. It's wired to be depressed. It's
Mm-hmm.
wired to be something different than what
Mm-hmm.
it was. Again, that's where that functioning, that day-to-day functioning that we're talking about, it can't happen because now my brain is rewired to function differently than it was before this event happened.
Crazy.
Right.
Go ahead.
So we teach relaxation, and that's where mindfulness comes in. That's where, talking about it and asking, like, where am I feeling that in my body? Because certain things, certain conversations have an effect on the body. And as a trauma focused therapist, we were teaching not just the new survivor of this
Mm-hmm.
traumatic experience, but we're also working with the parents to
Mm-hmm.
teach them as well, because the parent is saying, all these new behaviors, they're acting this way, they're doing this, da, da, da,
Right.
da. We don't know what happens to spark these negative behaviors that the parent is now seeing. I had one client that mom had stopped smoking. She
Mm-hmm.
was no longer smoking in the family home. I think she had been like 4 months, no smoking, no cigarettes, invited a friend to come over to the house. The friend lights up and the daughter goes berserk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A
Mm-hmm.
little later, because the daughter and we've been doing some work, the daughter says to her, he used to smoke. I can
Wow.
smell the smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the previous boyfriend used to come into the room, he smelled like cigarette smoke. And
Yeah.
so now this child,
Mm-hmm.
again, who's limited in words, limited in, knowing what to say, how to say, instead of talking about it, behaviors start to erupt. And mom
Mm-hmm.
is like, wait a minute, we haven't seen this kind of thing since.
Yeah. So that's, I want to ask, so as a parent, how can you, I mean, aside from, well, are there signs or are there things that a parent could identify or see to say maybe something happened?
There are, again, with trauma, It impedes your day-to-day functioning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, again, what may be traumatic to you may not be traumatic to me. So
Right.
let's say all of a sudden my daughter is now peeing in the bed at 10 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen peeing in the bed since she was 2, right?
Right.
Or potty training. But now all of a sudden she's peeing in the bed. Something has happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sign. If I've taken my daughter and or son, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
or son,
Child. Yeah.
child, to the doctor, and they're not saying that there's something physically wrong why this child has now started peeing in the bed, we then start to look psychologically, like, has something else happened? It
Right.
could be something as simple as kids bullying at school, and
Mm-hmm.
the kid doesn't want to come home and talk about that, but I got to go to school every day and I have to deal with
Right.
bullying every day. It could be any number of things. But yes, as a parent, there are signs. Anytime your child is now having behaviors and doing things that seem odd, that is your signal. That is your sign. Let me investigate.
And what does that investigation look like? What I mean, so for your example, peeing in the bed, you said take them to the doctor. Doctor says nothing's wrong. How do you begin to have that kind of a conversation with your child when they are limited in language and you want to make them feel comfortable or have a safe space to express themselves with you?
So, starting with, okay, as a parent, I need to ask myself, where have I allowed my child to go?
Mm-hmm.
Where have they been? Who's
Mm-hmm.
been around them? Where, if I know that I kind of keep a tight leash, so to speak, and they don't get to spend the night at people's homes, they don't, or people are only allowed to come into my home, who's been
Mm-hmm.
in my home? What's going on in my home? Did they watch something on TV? Even, sometimes watching things on TV. Has there been any recent changes in our family dynamic? Did I have a recent breakup? Did someone recently die? Has someone recently gotten ill? Part of what we did when taking on children with trauma is do an assessment. It's a trauma assessment. There's tons of questions that are asked, because again, there are a lot of things that can be traumatic. Oh, maybe that child saw someone brutally beaten up outside of the schoolyard and didn't necessarily talk about it, but still internalized that.
Mm-hmm.
So if part of that is part of the questionnaire. I believe
Mm-hmm.
it's like 30 questions. It's been a little over a couple years since I've done one. I believe it's like 30
Mm-hmm.
questions. And at the end of the questions, the question is asked, of these events that you've named that you felt were traumatic, which of these do you think about the most?
Mm-hmm.
Which of
Mm-hmm.
these, do you? And so from there, we start to unpack
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
start to peel back, the layers of what happened, how it affected the child, give the child a voice to just talk about it. One of the things with the trauma focused therapy is that it allows the child, once you go through a lot of things, with, you know they call it the P.R.A.C skills. So it's psychoeducation, it's relaxation, it's affect regulation, and then cognitive reframing.
Okay.
So, like I said, so we go through the education piece, we teach the mindfulness and learning about the body and where you're feeling things. And then we get into affect regulation, which is what you talked about, where the touch no longer becomes a traumatic thing. I can now accept a touch and recognize it as love, or,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so we're reframing it, helping to reframe in the cognitive reframing piece. Okay, so does if everyone who touches you on your shoulder, do they want to hurt you? And getting them to understand that that's not what that is. But
Right.
in the end, they then write what we call a trauma narrative.
Okay.
And in that trauma narrative, we have gone through this thing, honey, weeks and weeks and weeks, where they are writing and talking and writing and talking. So in this example with Ashley Braxton, you know, there had to have been times where this uncle, there were great memories with that uncle, right?
Mm.
It wasn't all terrible. So we're going to start with that. Tell me about a great time that you and your uncle had. And she would go through and talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. Tell me about now. We're going to, and as we're doing this, like we're helping her through relaxation, cognitive reframing, affect regulation. Because once I ask her the question, tell me about the day he started texting you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's automatically going to cause a physiological response because it's
Right.
traumatic for her.
You're
It's
going back to
caused
that
all
place.
this. Yeah. So, okay, now it's when you got to use your skills, deep breathing. Maybe I'm going to do some grounding. Maybe, so it's the pieces then come together as she's writing this trauma narrative
Mm-hmm.
about what happened, about the people around her, about um, what she was thinking, what she was seeing, what she was smelling. All
Mm-hmm.
things come into play when we write this trauma narrative. And she writes it over and over and over and over. And this again helps with the affect regulation, the cognitive reframing. She then creates a safety plan. Well, what happens if somebody else starts doing this to you? How do you respond to that? So you using that trauma narrative, once it's complete, um, actually before it's completed, she will have identified an adult that she
Mm-hmm.
trusts. Because once it's complete, then she will read it out loud.
Mm-hmm. And what is this doing, right? You're saying affect regulation, right? The writing of it, the reading of it out loud, but in the body, it's essentially to release that trauma, right? And because I feel like a lot of people think about trauma and things that happen as something that happened to them, right? And it's not in them necessarily. And so I feel like that's a lot of times why these traumas and experiences can so easily get dismissed. As you said earlier, maybe the aunt had something that happened to her and I got through it and I got over it. But really she's living in la la land because it's still in you if you're not doing the work to to rewire the brain and not diminish the fact that the brain has been rewired and not diminish the fact that this stuff lives in your body and shows up in how you move and work and love and behave. And so that those practices I'm sure are really really powerful and effective, right? I can see how getting that out, speaking your truth, rewriting your truth, literally and figuratively, is powerful and taking an ownership, of your story. How do
Mhm.
you advise, because trauma, it will affect, especially in something like this, obviously it affects the whole family, and a lot of your work that you do is with the family. So how do you advise or counsel the parents or the sisters or the surrounding parties of that person?
Good question.
In
So
in two parts to question, advise them in their own dealing with it and then in the support of the person whom it happened to.
one of the great pieces about what I used to do, which is home based therapy. With home based therapy, we looked at the child systemically, the child at home, the child at school, the child in the
Right.
community. So I was there with the child in all these different environments because a lot of times parents will say, "Well, they don't they act like that with me, but they can go to school and da 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 da."
Right.
Well, let's see what the school has in place that makes it so that they can function appropriately versus what's
Versus
in
here.
place at home that they're not functioning
Smell
appropriately.
like cigarettes at home, but it smell like pine sol at the school. So I'm not, yeah.
So exactly. So it's a lot of investigative work. Maybe
Sure.
you can put to try to pinpoint some things that are triggers.
Sure.
A lot of times, when things happen, we think, "Oh, the child is just trying to misbehave," or
Right.
but they're being triggered by
Right.
something. Had another mom that, like, I have so many stories of behaviors from children that the parents were just like, "I don't get it. I don't understand. Why would my child smear feces? Or why
Right.
would my
Mm.
child poop and then not want to clean themselves. For the child, it's a protection. Like,
Right, 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 right,
poop and it's all over me, they won't want me. They won't
right,
touch
right.
me. They will leave me alone. Everybody, leave her alone. I don't ever have to worry about anybody doing that bad thing to me ever again because I got poop on me.
Right,
And that
right.
makes sense to them
To them. Yeah. That's how they,
because again, their understanding is limited. But
yeah.
parent, it's annoying. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like for the parent, it's annoying. It's embarrassing. It's like, how dare you? Why would you? How could
Mm-hmm.
you? Like,
Didn't I raise you better than that? Oh,
there's
sorry.
all those things.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, sorry. Were you gonna say something else?
Go ahead.
So we've also in this, clip alluded to the potential of this being generational, right? This happened to them, and then probably their mom and their mom's mom. So how do we break that cycle? How do we come against this continuing to affect our families and continuing to affect our children? And obviously we can't control the behaviors of a predator, right? But there's something to, I have a lot of thoughts. So, as we just said, if this did happen to mom, it's still within her, right? So there's probably something mom has done or subconsciously doing to attract this predator now into the family to then affect, potentially harm the child, right? So now that child's harmed and that child grows up and still has that trauma within them. So therefore, they're still going to attract a predator, and it just keeps going. So, what do we do?
We began to normalize the conversation.
Yeah.
We have to talk about what's happening. We have to, if I, even me, I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. If I hadn't seen another friend, close family friend go through it, and then hear all the talk, I don't think I would have been able to survive. I think I would have been able to succumb to it and, engage in the behaviors that because again, especially when you're in that age of sexuality. Ashley was in an age of sexuality, 16, 17. Like that's when you're coming into that owning all the things that have happened to my body. My breasts are bigger, my boobs, are looking great. I put on this bikini and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't invite you, the predator, to
Mm-hmm.
come and try to take advantage of
Sure.
who I am.
Right.
You
Right.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like having the dialogue, making the child aware and then giving them that safe space to come and have the dialogue. In this particular example, it's tremendously hard because again, this is family.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't
Mm-hmm.
what family do. This
At
is not
all.
what I expect that if it's gonna happen to come from Joey out there somewhere.
Right.
Not my uncle.
Can you give us some language for anyone who has gone through this and needs to tell somebody but doesn't know where to start, doesn't want to offend, right? Because a lot of times as the person who's gone through the offense, you don't want to affect everybody else, right? You know how bad it is for you to deal with it and how much you're internally dealing with. And then you see auntie and uncle, they already arguing and mom's over here doing this. And so how does one approach that situation? And I'm sure it starts probably, with themselves, but then how do you bring that up to the family? And what confidence can you give them, that it's okay to do that, whether they're received or not?
Yeah, and that's hard because in our human psyche, we all want to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
We all want acceptance, right? And I'm sure, like she said, initially, everyone was there for her and she
Right.
felt like she could trust them. I think it was by accident that this came out because she didn't come forward. Her parents happened to see something on the phone that disturbed them
Yeah. True.
and took it to her to say, what's going on? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, she began to tell her story. So it's not necessarily that she was even ready to tell
Right.
the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but again, helping our children to understand the difference between a good touch, a
Mm-hmm.
bad touch, helping them to understand good language, bad language. We had an incident where the parents and calling things what they are. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The parents, we had an incident where a young lady, the parents called her private parts, her vagina, her breast, cookies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cookies. Don't share any cookies. The child, knowing this language, goes to school and says, my uncle wants me to share my cookies, but I don't want to give him any of my cookies.
Mm. And they
Teacher,
thinking Chips Ahoy.
yes, the teacher not knowing says, but
Ooh.
it's nice to share your cookies. Don't be
Mm,
mean. Let your uncle have some of your cookies.
mm,
And
mm.
the child now is in this back and forth because in her
Wow.
mind, cookies
Wow.
means my vagina and my breast.
Wow.
Teacher, like you said, is thinking Chips Ahoy, Nutty Butters,
That is
like,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, like giving appropriate language. Let's call it what it is. Let's make sure that we are on the same page, giving examples, doing role plays, making sure that the child knows what's appropriate and what's
It's not.
inappropriate. And
Yeah.
also giving space for them to ask the questions,
Mm-hmm.
for them to gain knowledge, for them to gain an understanding, for them to have um, a safe space
Mm-hmm.
for this type of conversation. And as long as a lot of the recovery happens when the child has a safe space. So if the parents were on board, if the parents were there supporting this child, even if the aunt did all the things that the aunt did,
Right.
the child can still function because they have this place that there's acceptance, that there's love, that there's honor, that there's belief
Right.
in what's happened. So many times it took so much for me with the parents to even believe that your child was telling the truth.
Because why would they lie about this?
They're just a troublemaker. They always stirring trouble. They've seen us on TV, and so they want to
Mm,
bring us into our family home and disrupt everything we got going on.
mm, mm, mm.
Because maybe the boyfriend is the breadwinner and mom hasn't worked, and this is how our mortgage gets paid and things happen, and if I let him go, then I don't know how that's going to happen. So why are you trying to disrupt our family?
So, how does someone begin to have that conversation as the potential survivor, the one who was offended in the incident?
The key really is to have a safe space, whether it's a friend, a teacher, a aunt.
Mm-hmm.
Can't go to your parents. You know what I mean? Like you have to feel safe in order to open up about something like that. Like it's hard. Like it's hard. And to hold it though creates all these other negative repercussions of this. So it's really, really important to be able to have a safe space, to have to be able to open up to anybody.
Right.
That's the
Okay.
start.
That's where you start. So, this was great. I learned a lot. And unfortunately, this conversation is necessary, right? Unfortunately, there are so many traumatic incidents. And in this particular case, we were talking about sexual assault and molestation. But as we touched on at the top of the show, trauma doesn't always come in that form, right? Trauma sometimes is what you've seen, what you didn't see, what's happened or what hasn't happened to you. And so I just want to give validation to anybody, who has experienced trauma and feels a little different. We learn the definition and it's affecting your day to day. It's affecting how you're able to live your life. And you have the right to tell somebody, you have the right to express what's happened to you. Somebody believing you or validating it doesn't mean you're right or wrong. If this thing has happened to you, you have the right and you deserve to find a space to express yourself and to feel comfortable um letting these things out. So I would like to ask what we Let's Talk Sis is all about having conversations, right? Using the power of conversations just to connect with other people, to let other people know, they're not alone. They're not the only ones going through this. Learn from my experience, learn from your knowledge, your wisdom, your experiences. So I want to leave the audience with an encouragement to have a conversation. So based on what we talked about today, what type of conversation do you want to challenge them to go and have within their own communities?
I would say, if you have not began to teach your children, or you haven't begun to create those safe spaces that allow your children or your friend or your loved one to talk about hard things, to ask yourself why,
Mm-hmm.
and have why is it that this is a topic that's off limits?
Mm.
Why is it triggering me? Just checking your triggers. How do I check my triggers? If I'm watching something on television and I don't know, someone was raped or someone was molested or any negative thing, and I'm truly triggered and don't want to talk about it and can't talk about it, why?
Why? Great. So go out, ask yourself why. Why is it so tough to allow this
Conversation.
information, yeah, this conversation in my space? Why am I offended by this? Why does it turn me off? Because yeah, that is something internal. These things are real. These things are happening. And so you just being so off put by it is, we got to check that. So y'all got the challenge. Y'all know what to do. We encourage y'all to have that conversation and check back in. Let us know how it went. Let us know what was said. And I'm excited to, see the growth and healing that comes from this. So, Mom, tell the people where they can find you, what you're working on, or anything, you want to leave them with.
So you can find me, you can send me an email
Mhm.
at firststepscounseling at gmail.com. Send me a snippet of what the concern is, if you're interested in doing life coaching, and we will go from there.
Perfect. Well, I thank you for joining us. This conversation was great. Did you
I
have fun?
heard. Yeah, it wasn't bad. Not bad at all.
Okay,
Great
cool.
interview. It was good.
Thank you. Well, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk Sis. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this with everybody you know, especially those you know who need to hear this conversation. And we'll see you back next week. Bye.